One of the things I love to do at One Rental at a Time is bring on new faces with new stories and new way to help people. We've got the one and only Becky from Lady Landlords here. Shout out to Jen for setting this all up. Becky, how you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Why don't you do me a favor? The audience has yet to meet you. Why don't you give us kind of your background, who you are, what you do in this crazy world of real estate investing?
Sure. So I am originally from New York. I started out in cancer research. That was actually a profession that I had chose, worked in that for about 15 years. Decided I wanted to do something a little different, get out there, kind of live my life. So I quit. I moved to Europe. I used to own a tour company, moved over to
Wow.
Portugal, bought a bar, then actually gave up. I actually, at the time, I had a little bus that would take people back and forth between Spain and Portugal, back and forth. Made a really bad decision with that bar, lost a little over $100,000 and had to move back to the United States. Decided I needed to figure out how to build back better to
Hmm.
move back abroad and continue traveling. So I started investing in real estate thanks to my now husband, Emilio. He's an immigrant from the Dominican Republic and very much wanted to that American dream to get that first house. Got started in real estate investing. We now own 16 doors between New York and the Dominican Republic. We split our time between the two countries, and it's been the thing I never knew I needed in my life is real estate investing.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. We're going to get to all of it, but I want to go back to the very beginning because I'm going to guess when you say you were in cancer research, that
Mhm.
probably meant you went to school for a long, long time. I'm going to guess. Is that
Yep,
fair to say?
I spent quite a bit of time in school. Yes.
Yeah, because what I think it's really interesting is lots of us, go to college to get the advanced degrees because we have a passion or we think we know what we want. And I'm going to guess cancer research is one of those kind of passion projects that
To
people get
me,
into.
you wanna be able to help other people. I thought it was a I learned the exact same thing. I was raised with go to school, get a good job. To me, cancer research is kind of at the top of that list.
Yeah.
But to me, it was very much, this is the place I'm supposed to be. I'm able to help other people. I'm able to make a contribution to society. All of those different things sounded fantastic. In practicality, that's not how it actually worked. But on paper, it seemed really good.
Yeah, no, yeah. Then once you get in the machine, you realize it's not like they show you on TV or the movies. It's a grind. It's politics. It's this. It's that. The impact that you were hoping to make probably never seems to materialize. You get disenfranchised. And then a lot of people, let's be honest, they stay in it because the middle class lifestyle, right? They've inflated their expenses where exiting or punching out is not an option, right? They can't go to Europe and start a
Right.
tour company. They can't go buy a bar.
Well, that was the problem where I got to. So I was 25 years old, making $100,000, living in New York City. I paid 2 grand for a 500 square foot studio. Let's talk about that one for a second.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly,
when I
exactly.
looked into, okay, you can change to a different career path, look into something different. It was cool. You can go back and now you can make $30,000 a year. One, how am I paying for my ridiculous studio apartment? But how am I living in New York City? And now I got to go, once again, all those years of school. Now I got to go back and I'm making 30, 40,000 and climbing my way through that food chain again. That made no sense.
Mm.
But I ended up in exactly in that spot. One, I was on call 24/7. I had a pager to date myself here to call me when I had something at the hospital I had to deal with.
Yeah.
But my biggest problem was in cancer research. I felt that one of the doctors that I worked with had actually asked me to do something that I considered unethical that was against patient care. So I was like, the whole reason I'm doing this, the whole reason I'm killing myself with the commute, with this living paycheck to paycheck, with being here all these hours is to help people. And now I'm being asked to do something against it. So I said, screw it. I went back to my desk. I wrote a letter of resignation and went to like a bar at 2 o'clock on a Monday.
Wow. So you had kind of that moment where
Yeah.
you just had this thing that happened, you're like, "I'm out." So it wasn't like you planned for a year, it wasn't like you generated a bunch of savings, it's like you had a bad day, bad moment, and you were gone.
Well, okay, yes, Michael, that is a little bit more of how I work, but but this was something that was adding up. There were times that I remember like just watching. all these women kind of run to Grand Central Station, right? They got like the cute little fancy suits on with their skirts, but yet they're running in sneakers because they got to get home back up to the suburbs to like kiss the kid's head that's already asleep before then they themselves scarf down a meal and go to bed just to do it all over again. So this was already kind of weighing on me at that point. So really that to me was just the straw on the camel's back. I felt like I could have continued to do it if I felt that I was making an impact to help others. Once I realized I was not helping others and now being asked to do something that could hurt them, oh yeah, I was out.
You were out. You're out. And at that moment, you were single still.
Yes.
You were okay.
Yes.
So you're out. You go to a bar mid-afternoon, have a drink or two. How does it go from out of unemployed, drinking at a bar to moving to Europe? What's that kind of like?
Great question. So during that drink or two or five, I asked the bartender where I should move to. And he was like, lady, I don't know you. Go ask on this new thing called Facebook, get an answer there. So I put a message on Facebook that said, where should I move in Europe? Next morning, I checked my phone. Didn't even think about that the rest of the night. But the next morning I woke up and I got one response and it said, move to Sevilla. So I Googled Sevilla, found out that was in Spain, bought my plane ticket for 8 weeks later, sold everything I owned. I remember when I told my mom that like, this is what I was doing. One, she wasn't too shocked because she clearly met me by this point in my life.
Yeah, she knew you a little bit.
She knew me a little bit, but she was just kind of like, most people would like go to a different hospital or like move to Philly or Chicago. But you, no, different hemisphere. And I was just like, listen, I know I'm unhappy now. The only thing that's going to be different is that I could either be the same unhappy or be possibly more happy. Those are the only two outcomes. Yeah. So I went for it.
So you the next morning you decide to move or figure out where it is. You spend 8 weeks liquidating, right? Raising cash. You're now in Spain. How soon before you become an entrepreneur? Because that's kind of a pivot as well.
Probably it was about 2 weeks. So funny thing about Spain, they speak Spanish there. I didn't when I first moved there. I didn't know that. So my way of thinking, I guess, I don't know what you're going to title this episode because this goes back to me going to bars. What I ended up doing in Spain was I kept finding Irish bars, hoping there that somebody would speak English. Okay. That was my plan. Yeah. So after about 2-3 weeks there, I actually met a woman who came up to me and she goes, hey, I got to say, your English is pretty good. Why, thank you.
I am from New York, but thank you.
Thank you very much. She worked at a hostel and said that they were looking for somebody that can do historical walking tours for their people that are staying at the hostel. My minor was actually in history, but I love history, but I just could never figure out how to make money with it. So I said, this is perfect. I can do that. So I started doing the historical walking tours for her hostel. Then that turned into taking people out for flamenco shows, taking them out to pub crawls. My claim to fame is I've actually probably taught more people how to play beer pong than anybody else you'll ever meet in your life. Then your
mom must be so proud.
Well, when I had to call my mom and say, hey, I need you to mail red Solo cups and some ping pong balls to Spain. Yes, that's when she clearly knew I made it.
I love this story.
But then I started getting people that owned other hostels in Sevilla to come find me. Becky, we're losing business and clientele to that hostel because everybody's going to stay for your tours. Can you come do them for our tours, for our hostel? So then I had tours throughout Sevilla. Then I ended up doing tours for other cities in southern Spain. And then that's when I started, and that's when I actually moved out into Portugal because my goal was always just to go live on a beach. So I found this lovely beach town in Portugal that people went from Lisbon to this beach town out to Sevilla or vice versa. So I said, great, let me figure out how I can kind of monetize that L and just pick up clients all around.
So what year was this? When did you first land in Spain? What year was it roughly?
2008.
Okay, yeah, 2008. So, and how long were you there before you end up in this little beach town? Is it 2009, 10?
No, that would have been 2011.
Okay,
I think
so
I went
3
out
years
in 2011, and then I think it was and then it was a couple months after that I ended up purchasing the bar out there.
Okay, so then you buy a bar, lose a bunch of money, have to come back to the States. When do you get the real estate bug?
So I came back to the States 2013, 2014. I was there probably for about a year. I was trying to figure out what I could do to kind of rebuild. And when I came back from Europe, I kept coming back thinking like, you could just do the thing that makes you happy and don't worry about money. And I realized that did not work in New York City. That
It
did
doesn't
not
work in
work.
New York City.
That
No.
did not work in New York City at all. So at the time, I'm still trying to rebuild that. I started actually a business and medical consulting where I felt that I would be able to actually support cancer patients in a better fashion. I was making like $4 and I kept putting that back all into my business to kind of grow. And it was at that point in time that I met my now husband, Emilio. We started dating. He didn't know how broke I was. He was just kind of like, cool, Ivy educated, chick here. She's clearly got to be doing well. She's managing to live in New York City. She'll be fine. Had no idea what my credit was. A couple years later, we were living together. I left my computer open and walked away from it. And he was like, holy S, like that's what your bank account looks like?
Is it missing a couple of zeros?
Right. There was a negative sign in front of it. I wasn't sure what that really meant. Explain.
It's
So he was
red.
just kind of like, listen, like I want to be able for us to move forward in a relationship. I want to get married. I want to have a house. He really wanted that white picket fence.
Mm.
He said, we need to figure out a way for you to be able to move forward.
Mm.
I was not happy with this. I was like, I have the earning potential. I could go back to a cancer research easily, but I wanted to do the thing that really made me happy. So I kind of went down this whole financial literacy kind of journey, just how to get myself out of debt, how to save for a down payment, how to restore my credit, all of those different things. And then when we were able to revisit how to move forward with real estate, I kind of said, great, I understand you want to buy a house, but we live in New York City. I am not going to live paycheck to paycheck. So I feel, Michael, like I came up with the best idea ever, which was to buy a multifamily, live in one side, or rent out the other to be able to really offset the cost of that mortgage. I had no idea that there was house hacking. I had no idea that it was real estate investing. I just needed something to lessen my burden of what that mortgage cost was going to be.
I mean, obviously, you knew it intuitively. If you can attack your largest expense, X taxes, you're going to be better off financially. So, buying a duplex is a genius move. In fact, one I wish I made when I was, younger. So I love this story so far.
Thank you. It was for us, we went from, once again, I used to pay $2,000 a month for a studio, not even including utilities. Now, when we bought that first duplex, we were getting paid to live in New York City. It covered all of our expenses, all of our utilities, and at the time, it brought in about a surplus of about $300 in profit. Steal, absolute steal for New York City.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to guess some is good, more is better, right? You got the duplex, it worked out. Did you do that again? Did you house hack a second unit, or what was next?
No. So what actually happened at that time, it was actually at the closing for that first property. Now, we had a ton of problems at the closing. It took us 4 hours to do the closing, and there were probably more curse words than you've ever heard at another closing. But that's a whole nother episode. But at the end of our closing, when we finally got through this, I was given a check for the tenants that were living there.
Oh,
and I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just gave you all of my money. I signed my life away in this stack of papers, and you just gave me money on day one. And they were like, yeah, the tenants are already living there. This is your money. And I was like, that's it. We're doing it again. Everybody at the table, my now husband, my real estate agent, our lender, everybody was like, no, honey, you can't do that again. That's not how this works. And I'm like, yes, it is. I'm going to figure out a way to do this. And I completely kept tapped into my network. I called my lender and my realtor like on a monthly basis. It was like, can I buy another house now? Can I buy another house now? Can I buy another house now? Trying to figure out what that situation was going to be. And about 6 months later, my realtor actually said, actually, you might be able to. I need you to get pre-approved, but I have something that you might be interested in. So I call my lender. I'm saying, hey, I now need to be able to get my pre-approval. I need to get that back to my realtor. He's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Just give me a pre-approval. Tell me what I can do. He's like, actually, I think you might be able to buy. Let me get you over pre-approval. So as I'm waiting for this pre-approval to come through, my husband comes home and he goes, oh, it's so weird. I just saw a realtor leaving the house across the street. You know where that old couple lives? Yeah, he was over there. I wonder why. Come to find out that he met, you know how every neighborhood has that little old lady that watches everything?
Everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, she saw him and recognized that she didn't know him from the neighborhood during the appraisal. Little old lady goes over, taps him on the shoulder. What are you doing here? I'm a realtor. We're doing appraisal. This house is selling. She goes, give me your card. Maybe one day I'll want to sell mine. Well, apparently that was about 6 months later.
There you
He
go.
had an off-market deal that he was then able to negotiate between us and the neighbors to now buy a 4-family and a parking lot, which might not be a big thing for some people, but for a New Yorker, a parking
Big
lot
deal.
is a big deal.
Big deal.
Right
Nice.
across the street from our duplex.
Nice. So this was just a straight up investment property?
Yep, that was a straight investment property. We ended up buying it exactly 1 year later. Same exact date, same attorney's office, 1 year later.
That's amazing. I love
And
that.
I said to everybody, haha, I told you I would do it.
Yeah, I told you. You out me, people. What are you thinking? Manifestation. I love it. I love it. So the other thing you talked about in your story, currently sitting at 16 doors, roughly half and half between US and Dominican Republic. I don't own anything out of country. I only know a couple of people that do it. Why don't we first talk about any big differences kind of being in two places?
Yeah. The biggest difference with owning properties in two places is that we have to remember that mortgages do not act the same way in other countries. So I find it really interesting when I talk to people and you think of these lower cost of living areas, right? The Dominican Republic is a much cheaper place to live than the United States would be. But so people are like, oh, that's great. I can go buy a house for $70,000. Great. I can afford the 20% down. Oh, and with an interest rate of 7-8% and over 30 years, I could totally do that. And I'm like, that's not how mortgages work there, and definitely not also for foreigners, right? Interest rates are a lot higher. You've been looking at like 12, 13, 14%. You're looking at more of like a 5 to 7 year type of terms. You're looking at balloon rates. You're looking, especially for a foreigner, even if you can find a bank that would actually let you finance a property in another country, you're looking at probably a 35 to 40% down. Right?
Yeah.
So there's
Mortgages
all
are very
these
different. Yep.
mortgages in the United States is not how they function in every other country.
I would argue that not in most countries. 30-year
Right.
fixed rate financing on residential is like a gift in the United
Right.
States, whether investment
Correct.
or owner occupied. It's amazing. I'm just curious, like what was the first purchase in Dominican Republic, and then what was the rent, so I get kind of a ratio.
Sure. So the first purchase that we actually did there was actually new construction. It's in the capital. What
Oh wow.
we thought was in Santo Domingo. The reason we did that is my husband really wanted to be able to purchase long-term sustainable housing for those that actually live in the Dominican Republic, right? So usually when I say, hey, I own properties down in the Dominican Republic, they automatically think Airbnb, beach property, making a killing, just renting to tourists. That was not the first property that we bought. The first property really is for those that are living there. What was nice was that we were able to pay that off. So we have the profits that just kind of rolling from that. It is not our moneymaker at all. It is not a moneymaker from all. It is still in a great area of the capital, is still a couple bedrooms, great new construction, all security, but we're bringing in like $1,000 a month on that. It helps
And the
because it's
purchase,
paid off.
what the purchase was, what, like 70 grand? I have no
Yeah,
idea.
actually, that's exactly what it was.
Oh, okay. All right. So new, and I don't know if they do square foot out there. I mean, if we're talking 1,000 square feet, 800 square feet, what do you?
No, it would be more than that. Because they do meters. I think it would be about 1,200 or like 1,400 square feet
All right.
there.
So kind of okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And that also, what's interesting there is a lot of times you have what they still would call like a maid's quarters kind of area, which really is a 3rd bedroom and a 3rd bath, which is really kind of nice.
Oh, there you go. I like
so
that.
it's still a big space. Then after that, then we went, and then now that we had monies rolling in, I said, now I want my beach property. And then we did go buy that expensive beachfront property that we do short-term rental when I am not living there. But that really is I call that my home. My husband calls our home in the States. People will ask us when they first meet us, they're like, where do you guys live? And we'll say, like, at the exact same time, I say the Dominican Republic, he says New York.
It's hilarious. You guys are opposites. That's hilarious. So you got something on the water, it sounds like.
Yes. Yep, that's beachfront. We have our own beach club there. So we own like an actual restaurant on the beach through our condo association. We have our own beach umbrellas, lounge chairs. We have little beach boys that pull our lounge chairs out to our beach. That's clearly a very, very different type of property than the first one that we bought.
Love that. Love that. Well, this is a wonderful story. I love the fact that people can have the life that they want, with only 16 doors. I think a lot of the stuff that the world that you and I play in are always hundreds and thousands. And that's not what most people need. You don't need all of that. You can have an amazing life on a handful of property. So I love that story. Um, I want to go back to being happy. So you leave cancer research at a moment's notice, bad day, building, stressed. You go become an entrepreneur in Spain, then Portugal. Then you come back after a financial miss with the bar. Now 16 doors. Kind of graph for me your happiness. Like, did you get the happiness you want when you were running the tour group? Did you lose it when the bar came? Where's your happiness?
Sure. Clearly, cancer research, absolute low point.
Yep.
Running a tour company in Spain was amazing. I was incredibly happy. I had my own schedule. I had a team out there. Listen, to be honest, I was running pub crawls as a single chick in my 20s in Spain.
Yeah, that's
you
not
can't be
bad.
happy there. You can't really. You need some other type of support.
There you go.
That was absolutely fantastic. It was really interesting. Every time, I would talk to somebody on my tours, and they just assumed that I never went to school or had an education because I was running tours. Yeah. And honestly, I was making a killing running tours. Absolute killing. I was making more money than I was in cancer research.
Wow.
So yeah.
There you go.
So that was really nice. That I was incredibly happy with. When I expanded into the bar in Portugal, even before I lost it, I felt like probably my happiness was dropping. Now it was like I almost gave myself another job. Right. Now I had about 30 employees across 2 countries. Wow. I had to go between the 2 countries. Every 4 days I was switching between the 2.
Oh, wow.
It became now another job. I loved it, and I was making a ton of money at that age, and that was great. Running the bar, I did not necessarily really enjoy. That's where I feel like things kind of went downhill. When I lost my bar, that was a disaster. That was a really, really tough time. When I came back to the States, I will say what was interesting, I was completely broke when I moved back to the States, and then I was unhappy too. I will say, I feel like a theme is definitely when I had money, I was happier. But for me, really the pinnacle of my happiness was when I bought the property in the Dominican Republic. That was my beach property. Just also for your listeners too, beachfront property that I bought in Punta Cana, 2-bedroom, 2-bath there, that cost me $320,000.
Beachfront more expensive.
Yeah. I just want, with one thing you would ask what the other property had cost, I wanted to be very transparent with what that property cost. That cost me $320,000. I absolutely love it. It is, it's my happy place. It's the place that I wake up on a beach. I literally have counted from my patio to sand is 100 steps.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And it sounds like when you're not there, you're doing short-term rentals. So you're doing a week, minimum 3 days or weeks, or what are we doing?
So we do a minimum of 3 days. We really try to get out of the people that tend to rent kind of for a party weekend. Our complex, I kind of live in a senior citizen community for Canadians in the Dominican Republic. My husband and I are the youngest owners that the complex has ever had. So once again, it's not really listen, those older Canadians, they can party. But their party is a little bit different than a spring break kind of crowd. So we do a 3-night minimum for that. People that we don't really compete with the Airbnbs that are off beachfront. We compete with the all-inclusives that are beachfront.
Got it. That makes sense. That makes sense. I like that. Well, now let's talk about your passion, Lady Landlords. Tell us about Lady Landlords. What's it all about?
Sure. In case you forgot, back in 2020, a lot of people got laid off, pandemic. A lot of people were sent home. My husband was one of them. He lost his job. He came home and was like, babe, what are we going to do? We're down an income stream. And I kind of laughed, and I was like, we don't need you to work. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, we have already replaced your income stream with real estate in the past 2 years. So I was like, I think we should buy more real estate. And he was like, Becky, the entire world is shut down.
Are you doing this to me again?
We have no idea. We actually, interestingly, in 2020, in January, February, when we did our taxes, talking to our accountant, it's always really important to have a conversation with your accountant and your lender to make sure everybody's on the same page. And my accountant was like, so are you guys going to be buying property this year? And my husband was like, no more property. So I promised him in February that we would not buy more rental property. But then with the pandemic, I said, this is actually a huge opportunity. He kind of really didn't believe me. He kind of We had a couple choice words. He kind of walked into the bedroom, kind of slammed the door. And I was like, somebody has to agree with me that we need to start taking control over our income. So I went on Facebook and I made a Facebook group called Lady Landlords.
Hmm.
And that was it. And I figured it'd be me and my mommy hanging out in there and that nobody else would find this important or would care. Then all of a sudden I started getting join request after join request after join request. We made it to 1,000 members by the end of the month. We are
Wow.
going
Good for
to
you.
now 4 years later, we're about to hit 50,000 members, which is just crazy. And it's just, we've become the hub for a place to come to really get that confidence and support you need to go out there and be an educated real estate investor.
Yeah. I'm curious when you think about educating and motivating someone to get started, lots of people have interest, lots of analysis paralysis, lots of scared or nervous people because it's, you know, it's a commitment. What are some of the things that you kind of latch on to help people kind of build that confidence?
Sure. For me, it always starts with your end goal. I
Mm.
feel, especially with our world of social media, where you can see so many people, especially on Instagram, flashing big checks, standing in front of fancy cars, and yet you have no idea how much money they maybe lost to get that check or whose car they're actually standing in
Yeah.
front of. I
That
feel
ain't
like,
profit, people. That ain't profit. That's not
no,
profit.
no, it's not. And the way that like, and I know a lot of people too on Instagram, and sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know that's not true. I know that's not how that deal worked. Or
Yep.
they get into such like a specific niche that doesn't necessarily work for everybody else.
Mhm.
There were a lot of podcasts that I listened to when I started my investment journey. And then as I got into it, I was like, that works for that one specific person. That's not going to work for me buying in one of the most high cost of living, expensive markets in the world. Thank you for letting me know how to buy in Ohio, but this is not transferable skills over here.
Yeah.
So what I realized was that I had to figure out what my own goal was. Instead of just going and completely ditching what I was trying to work on, which was that financial freedom, which was to be able to work, live anywhere in the world and still bring in money securely compared to what I had done in Portugal, I had to stop chasing all these other people's strategies. All because it worked for them, they weren't looking for the same goal as me. I still today will scroll Instagram and I see a lot of people that I know, you and I both know, Michael, and they talk about, oh, I had to do this today as an investor, this to do as an investor, this to do as an investor. And I'm like, cool, I'm just gonna sit over here with my pina colada because your
Exactly.
day sounds miserable to me. So I
So
encourage
awesome.
people when they get started to think about what your end goal is. What are you looking to accomplish? Then kind of reverse engineer your plan, your strategy. I can't tell you how often I see in Lady Landlords women that have full-time jobs. And I'm talking like more of like a 50 hours, what full-time now means in corporate America these days. They got kids at home, whatever else they got going on in their life. And they're like, well, I heard on some podcast that I need to do the BRRRR strategy. So
Ugh.
now I need to become I need to go buy a gut renovation. I've never painted a room, but I got to go do this. And now but how do I do that with Johnny's soccer practice? And how do I do that with my boss breathing down my throat? And I'm like, because you shouldn't be doing that. There are so many other strategies to do in real estate. Do what fits you.
Yeah.
Don't do what because somebody else on Instagram told you to.
Yeah.
Your goals are different. Your finances are different. Your strategy needs to be different.
Yeah, the other thing that really bothers me, and again, it's very much a social media thing, is that kind of flash of unit count. That's
Mm,
probably my biggest bugaboo is, you know, people talking about hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of units. First and foremost, you and I both know most of those people are lying off their ass because they own like 1 or 2% of it, but you know, that's
correct.
neither here nor there. You're just another example of you could have an amazing life. You could be happy, you know, sipping a pina colada with a dozen, 16 units. And it doesn't take forever to build. You could build it in less than a decade. It is important for my ends to know and believe it's possible. That's what I fight for every day. One of the things I'm known
Right.
for is just get to 4. Just get to
Right.
4. That's it. If you get to 4, you can decide if you're done or if you want to go to 10.
Correct.
That's all I'm doing. Stop this, you know, don't repeat what Olivia and I did. That's not what the game is. Let's just get to 4. What do you think of that?
I did a video on my Instagram about this like 2 weeks ago even, and that was exactly it. I said, guys, we need to stop competing over who has most doors. I feel like you walk into a networking event, and the first thing that people say is like, oh, well, how many doors do you own? Right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't care about doors. I care about cash flow. That's more important to me. You can own 3, 4, 10 times more doors than me, but that does not mean that you're making the money that I do, right?
Yeah.
And I think we need to get detached from that. Also, who cares? I'm not looking to own all the real estate. I really am not. I want to own the least amount of doors for the most amount of money. That's it.
Yeah, you know what's funny to me? I think it's actually a time equation, and a buddy of mine, Dion, kind of brought this up. It's like, at the end of the day, I think he got done with 18 units. I think he did it with 18. He's like, people are it's like he spends 2 hours a month. He's like, "I don't have to
Right.
do anything, anytime, anywhere." Like, I'm playing the time game, right? He's a little bit older than I am, and he's like, "This is what it's all about." Right? I can take a nap midday. I could stay up till 4 AM if I want. I could have
Yeah.
tequila shots at 9 AM if you want. It's like, guys, think about time freedom. Stop thinking about this. Because the other thing that really bothers me is I think there is this hill of financial independence, right? And you could keep climbing forever and ever. Um, Olivia and I chose to sit down 7 years ago. We had maybe 1 unit a year, nothing crazy,
Hmm.
because we're done. We're still in the
Right.
game, but we're done. There are people that always are moving that goalpost. It's like, "Oh, I replaced my income. I doubly replaced my income. I quadrupled my income." And they just keep going and going. I'm like, What are we doing here?" Right? If you start forexing your monthly needs, do you really need 5? I mean, really?
Right.
It's just ego.
I completely agree. I know Dion very well. He and I have also had chats about really we're doing this for the time freedom rather than for the money's kind of coming in. Over this summer, so my goal right now, I do half the year in DR, half the year in New York. I really want to start going back to Europe. So I said to my husband, "Hey, we're going to start doing 2 months in Europe." He
Ooh.
was not necessarily all about that, but so I went this summer for 3 weeks. He ended up not coming to that, but I went and I wanted to go see the Olympics. Right,
Hmm,
also not necessarily the cheapest thing to be able to do. It was a goal of
nope.
mine to always go see the Olympics. So I started asking friends like, "Hey, do you want to go?" "Well, how long are you going to be there?" 3 weeks." "But I don't have that much PTO." "Oh, I don't think I can get like that time off." "Oh, I don't think like my family, I don't think I can leave the kids for that long." "Cool, bring them. I'm sure. Let's show them Paris. Let's
Yeah.
go." And
Yeah.
then it was just like, "Oh, but we can't do that." And then it became the financial excuses, right?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, cool." I bought myself a one-way ticket to Paris. I went to the Olympics for a few weeks. I then went down to Malta, which most people don't even know is a country. I then went over to Budapest. And it was just like I was able just to pick up and go and stay where I wanted to go. And
Nice.
the freedom of that is amazing. But when
Mm.
people get too looped into this, well, I need to commute for doors. And then now you're right. Like when you start having so many doors, if you don't have the right systems in place and you're running around managing, even if you had the 4 properties, but you're still managing them poorly, you just gave yourself another 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
not why I'm in this. I want to do this for the time freedom. I want to have that choice. We have one life to live
Mhm.
and we're losing a minute of it all day long. So
No.
get out there and
Yeah.
go do it. But
I love
that
it.
like I said, when I look at Instagram and I see all these people that are like, "Oh, I had to go deal with this contractor today, and oh, we had this problem over here," and I'm like, sounds like it sucks.
Yeah. Sucks to be you.
Yep. Me and Dion will sit over here with our tequila shots at 9 a.m. Like, all
There
right.
you go. There you go. Well, one of the things you're really known for is helping people take action. Why don't you give us a couple of tips or tricks or things that you recommend people do to kind of take that positive action?
Sure. I want to encourage people to start at that end goal, right? So we want to dream. One of the things that I really like to tell people to do is to like just brain dump. Throw out what those ideas are. What do you want your life to actually look like down the line? You need to start there, right? Not everybody is a big believer of vision boards, but does it absolutely help to have a direction of where you're going? Do this with your partner too. So that way you
Yes.
can really make sure that you're on the same page. This will also incredibly help if your partner's not so excited about real estate investing. My husband, I had a conversation with him this morning where he's like, "Becky, please, can we not buy another property this year?" And I'm
We're
like,
done.
"I
We're
can't
done.
guarantee. I can't. I'm not looking for another right now, but I can't
Yeah.
guarantee that that's how it's going to play out." But really sit down and go through that exercise of what do you want to have happen in your future? And then you can really create what that action plan is going to look like. If you're saying, like me, you want to go live on a beach, well, once again, probably doing rehabs that you're doing most of the work or working with a specific team is not going to work. You want to look at more turnkey properties. You can do out of state rehabs because you're going to put somebody else really in place to be in charge of that. But you need to think about what your goal is and what you want to have in your life and what you want your lifestyle to be, then you could pick your strategy based off of that. Are you going to do flips? Are you going to do buy and holds? Are you going to just end up purchasing into some syndication? What does that look like for you? Then from there, you can actually say, okay, great. Now I know I'm going to do syndication. Cool. How do I get educated on syndication specifically? You're not out there listening to everything about how to do a burst strategy. You're not going to aimless networking goals. Now you're sitting there being like, cool, I have 2 hours a week in my life to focus on real estate investing. I am going to spend 2 hours researching and meeting people that can get me into the best syndications out there. You can be more time efficient. You can be more focused, which is going to lead to more action, which is going to lead to more results.
Yeah, I love that. If somebody wanted to follow you, Becky, wanted to check out Lady Landlords, where do we send them?
I prefer that. It should be Lazy Lady Landlords. But
My bad.
if you're looking to find me, if you identify as female, you can find me on Lady Landlords in Facebook, or for anybody else, you can find me on Instagram at the Becky Nova.
The Becky Nova. This was a lot of fun. Jen, thank you again for setting this up. I appreciate you. Becky, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me today.